Hey guys, Scott here. Today I want to talk about your mother, but first I want to talk about how after 10 years, somehow it just seems like the overall skill level of the average Dead by Daylight player hasn't really increased very much. And I've kind of briefly touched upon this phenomenon a little bit, but I want to go into it a bit more in depth here because of a game I had the other day. So recently I was doing a hardcore survivor viewer thing where basically my viewers would join my lobby. And if they leave through the exit gate, then they get a point. Anyone gets 10 points, they get a free Steam game of their choice just to spice it up a bit. And it's pretty hard to escape 10 games in a row, even in a Survive with Friends. So I thought that'd be something interesting to try. Now, as I was doing it, I mostly 95% of my games are solo queue. So playing with viewers that, know the things that I'm telling them or are as good or better than me, it completely changes the entire game. So the main example I want to talk about here is Sadako. We had a game against a Sadako, and if you've ever seen stats for DBD and kill rates and stuff like that, Sadako usually has the first or second highest kill rate in the entire game, which, if someone from the outside were to view, you would go, oh, she's one of the best killers in the game, but anyone that plays this game past a certain point can tell you she's not very good at all. In fact, she's actually quite bad. She's one of the weaker killers in Dead by Daylight, but she still has one of the highest kill rates in the entire game. And a lot of that is just because people just simply don't know what to do against her. Because, and here's the first problem, the game just doesn't tell you what to do against her. There's the little loading screen tip you get for like half a second. It's like, she gets condemned. I don't know what that is. Fuck it. Good luck. But there's no actual real way to learn how to counter her without listening to someone that actually makes content, or someone in post-game chat explains it to you. But usually they're just going to, curse you out and just say, fuck you and you suck, blah, blah, blah. But that's the first main problem. The tutorials for this game are basically non-existent. We have one generic tutorial that covers vaulting pallets and dropping pallets and vaulting windows and saving people. Like, it covers the absolute bare basics of the game, but the truth is that tutorial is really, really old. The game is just simply not that simple anymore. A tutorial that you give for one killer might be completely useless against another killer. For example, even the best advice I can give, which is spread out from your teammates as much as humanly possible, that doesn't even apply to every killer, because if you get twins, for example, you actually do want to group up. My point is, there's no generic tutorial you can give the average Dead by Daylight player to really improve their gameplay. It's all entirely killer specific. So how do you fix that? Well, it's pretty easy. You just make little 10-second videos in like a compendium for every killer so you can look it up. You can be able to do this in-game. So you can go, oh, I'm going against Sadako. Okay, let me just press tab, go to compendium, and there'll be like three bullet points and like maybe a little video of you like turning a tape or a TV off or something like that. The bullet points would be like, if you're doing a generator near an active or white TV, turn off the TV or grab the tape from it. This way, whenever the Sadako teleports, you won't gain a condemn stack. When you're fully condemned, you can be killed when you're downed. It's basically all you have to do, is just tell people the main counterplay to this killer is just turn off the TVs near the gens that you're working on. If you're holding a tape, you have to trade one condemn stack to turn off the television, but that's still way better than the 5 stacks you'll get as she teleports around repeatedly and builds it up because you're sitting next to an active television. You just have to tell people just basic shit like that, and her kill rate would go from 66% to 46%. Her kill rate would literally drop by like 20% if you just gave like 3 bullet points of how to counter her. But that's the problem. They don't do that. They don't tell you how to counter any killer like at all. There's, again, the really basic loading screen tips, but that's not enough. That's not gonna, you need visuals sometimes to show and, like apply the things you're actually telling people with what it looks like in the game, because those can be completely different things. And without that, we're just going to keep having the same thing, because if you don't teach people how to do it, they're going to get exposed to it, die, and go, I didn't learn anything. And then the next time they get this killer, they're just going to be the exact same thing again. They're just going to continue to not know how to do it. So that's the first major thing there. And you'll notice all the top kill rate killers are killers that kind of vibe with this general, non-general gameplay. Because the top killers are like Nurse, Sadako, like Freddy, Like none of these killers are good. I mean, you could argue Twins is pretty good, but most of the top 5 killers in terms of kill rate are not good killers at all. They just have non-conventional methods of playing the game that are too hard to just learn based on exposure. You need to actually be told, because you could have 10,000 hours in this game, but if you keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again, you won't actually get better. You need someone to teach you, just like how I learned from streamers. That's how I got better at the game. I learned from people better than me. And that shouldn't necessarily be the best way to get better at the game. The game should kind of tell you, or at least hint at how to do that within the confines of the game itself. So, like, that is something I think they really, really need to work on. And, like, again, honestly, if we look at the top 5 killers here, Twins is good. She has a 59% kill rate. These are not official stats, by the way. Behaviors actually, I think, had Sadako at the top. But Twins, Sadako, Dredge, and Artist. Oni's pretty good. But, like, the top 5 killers, 3 of them are not great. Artist is, like, okay. She's decent. But Sadako and Dredge are fucking terrible. They're not good killers. And this is just because they have slightly more complex mechanics. When Nightfall hits, people are scared. They don't know where to go and stuff like that. They just have slightly more complex than the basic tutorial mechanics, and that's why their kill rates are so high. So having tutorials be better really is one of the main things that would make the average player a lot better. And we're not asking for everyone to be a comp pro crazy good player. We're just asking for people to know the basics of how a killer functions. If we did that, you would see the kill rates in this game completely, drastically vary. Now, an interesting talking point about this, and I love talking about this because it kind of doesn't really make a lot of sense. What do most people say that this game is balanced for? They say it's balanced for the average player. They say it's balanced for newbies. That's why this game is so hard at top MMR, because they balance for babies that don't know what they're doing. And the problem is, that's kind of true sometimes, but it's also not true sometimes. Like, you can see, you know, Freddy and Sadako, they have very, very high kill rates because, I don't know, people just can't play against them. And so the game doesn't buff those killers, which are frankly actually pretty weak. And instead of teaching people how to play against them and then buffing their strength accordingly, because once you do learn how to play against them, they become completely harmless. Instead of doing that, they just kind of let it lie as it is. And then we have this crazy imbalance of people saying, what are you talking about? Sadako's terrible. And then you have new players going, what do you mean? She's overpowered. I don't know what to do. And so it just makes constant infighting. So if everyone had the same level of knowledge, which doesn't really take that much, then I think we would be in a much better spot. But it brings me to that point where everyone says that they're balancing for the casual player, but then there's outliers to that too, because then you look at a killer like the Nurse, who doesn't have a high kill rate. Her kill rate is actually not very good at all, but they're not buffing the Nurse at all because they acknowledge she's, you know, either the first or second best killer in the game. So that's a decision that's being made with the high level in mind. My point is, there's not really much of a consistency here on what is the building block or the basis of their balancing discussions. We don't know if they're balancing around the new player, the average player, or the really good player, because there are stats that throw a wrench in every possible viewpoint that you have. If you think they balance around new players, well, no, then look at this. Average, no, look at this. Good players, no, look at this. Like, there's no pattern there. There's no consistency. So in addition to people not having the proper knowledge provided by the game, it also just doesn't really... It's not clear what their actual target for the balance is based on the decisions that they make. So having a more unified and consistent balancing direction, I think, would be a lot better in terms of a bit more unity and people understanding stuff as well. There's also like the great filter of DBD, which I've talked about previously in videos before, but basically the reason the number of good players is not very high is because good players have basically 3 paths. Once you get to a certain point in this game and you kind of like, you know, you really are getting very good at it, either you go into comp, which is a very, very small portion of the player base, an extremely tiny percent. So you either go there, you become a content creator to profit from how good you got at the game and people want to watch good players, or you just stop playing the game. There's basically no one that plays this game 5-6 hours a day, you know, once they hit the 7,000 hour mark, that just does it and they just play and then that's it. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple, but that's an extremely rare thing. Usually people go, once they get a certain skill point, they go one of those 3 paths. They become a content creator, they go into comp, or they just stop playing the game. And that's why you don't really see that many good players, because If they are, comp, they're usually doing, private scrims and stuff like that. So they're going to be less likely to be in public games. If they stop playing the game, obviously you're not going to see them whatsoever. And if they're content creators, you might see them, but there's not very many content creators in terms of like, actual, successful DBD content creators that, continually stream the game. So it's like, that sort of, it filters itself out due to the game's, I'll be honest, pretty low level of depth. Like, I can't even say low level of depth. There is a lot of depth to this game, but a lot of it is not really exciting to watch, in my opinion. So it kind of is like one of its own, like, self-fulfilling failures there. But I don't know. I just think that's an interesting topic there. But really, the main point is it's the tutorials that are not specific enough, and we don't have a clear target of what we should be balancing around. I think by improving those things, we can have so many arguments in this community which come from a disparity of where their viewpoint is, would just be fixed like that. And it really wouldn't be that hard. Like I said, a 10 to 15 second video on every killer's page with a little bullet points telling you the main counterplay. So the killer would go so far and really not take that much time to do. So that's going to be it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.